Mhm. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Hood to the Hill. You are here with the Black Anglo Saxon. And today I have with me a very, very special guest. I am going to do the honors and let him introduce himself before we get our conversation started. So without further ado, Mr. Councilmember White, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are, where you are, and anything else you would like to share before we start our
All right,
conversation.
great. Thank you. Well, my name is Trayon White. I serve as a council member right here in the Great Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you, Lesesne, for having me on this platform. I admire your intelligence and what you're doing here. I look forward to diving in the conversation today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. He's a very modest man. It's a lot more he could have said. He just got some W's for us here over in Ward 8. And he has been great in terms of how he has galvanized. And I want to say this is your third term as council
Yep,
member.
third
Yep. So
time.
this is his third term as council member, and that was just recent within the past year. So today we're going to be talking about the elections that just have passed us here in DC with the primaries. And I'm going to start off by just asking you, what message do you believe voters were trying to send through this election, and what was missed? Because a lot of people, are having this conversation around the Democratic Socialists of America and just the whole wave that has been happening throughout the East Coast as well as the nation. And I think there is something that is and has been missed over the last decade. So I just would like for you to kind of tell me how you see the landscape, how it's changing, how it's shifting, and where you fit within that.
I think that people are just tired of the status quo and the same old, same old. Um, on a national level and a local level, I think the Democratic Party has been historically suffering and diminishing. And so this new socialist democratic wave just kind of woke people up and got people more involved and created a movement. Locally, the Janice Lewis George here in Washington, D.C., Councilman for Ward 4, latched onto that, built the base, and, shocked the world. She put away the naysayers and she ran a pretty spirited race. The other person, as you know, was the former Ward 5 councilman for at-large Councilmember King McDuffie. I think that people saw that the government wasn't working for everyday people like they thought it would. We had a mayor in DC, Mayor Bowles, that served for what, 3 terms, so almost 12 years, and 4 terms. Yeah, so almost what, 4 times 4 is 16? No, it
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
16 years, 12.
Yeah, it's 12.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. People were trying to, figure out what to do different, and I think Janice Louis George's message resonated, and I think that the campaigns were very different in itself. From the gate, I didn't think that Councilmember McDuffie, former Councilmember McDuffie, put up a formal campaign that could be a person with a wave like that, based on a number of factors. So I wasn't surprised.
And I talked about it a little bit in my last video. I definitely wasn't surprised because, to your point, and it's something that you touched on in terms of the rhetorical speech that a lot of people give, especially those who would be considered centrists on the political spectrum. They have a tendency and have had a tendency to kind of rhetorically be good, but lack the execution. So my question to you is, what's something that government as a whole, when we talk about the District of Columbia, can do a better job at versus just rhetorically speaking to it versus actually executing on it? Because you hear people talk about public safety all the time, housing affordability, and all of these, topics that people love to use the buzzwords around. But what is that one thing or two things or however many you may think that is something that should be more focused on, that we can figure out a way to execute better on it in this administration and in this current era right here in DC politics?
People want to know that they can go to work every day and make an earnest living and be comfortable living here. From the expensive tickets to the crime to the failing education system, people didn't feel like the government was working in their favor, and quite frankly, they was looking for anybody that had something to offer different. And people felt like the McDuffie campaign was the same reiteration of the green team. They felt like, it was oppressive from what I was hearing in the streets. So people was looking for some way that some people was talking about affordable housing, but how does that look? How can my dollars go further in a city where it's hard to already live here and the price of living has historically keep going up while the quality of service, even in government, has been poor. And people had lost a sense of connectivity to everyday politicians in the city. And so I felt like people was looking for some answers and even hope, because even we haven't really seen it yet because the election's still going on with just the primaries just passing, but people are, and it's not going to be easy for uh Janice Lewis George. It's going to be hard for her coming in trying to manage going against the federal government, trying to work with President Trump, trying to uphold some of her promises made as we facing a $700 million shortfall in the budget. It's not going to be easy. So she's going to have a special talent, special skills, special leadership to address some of these budget shortfalls, some of the expectations.
Yep. And speaking of those expectations, I know a lot of government work is about managing those expectations because people look to you all for a lot when it comes to the deliverables. But given everything that we are experiencing with the federal minutia with Trump and everything that is taking place, if I know that they asked the mayor the other day some advice that she would give about Janice as an incoming mayor, but as council member of Ward 8, what are one of the things, having been around this for a very long time now, in your youth as well as a man, what's one of the things that you think she should prioritize? And what would be some advice that you could give her as an incoming transitioning from the legislative to the executive?
Well, I think that first of all, people want to go to the DMV, want to go and interact with government. They feel like they are friendly, that work for them, not the other way around. And I think that there has to be a tone set that is a new day in leadership where you don't get special privileges because you're affiliated with somebody, just because you know somebody, but everyone should be treated equally and with a sense of care in our government agencies. I think there has to be a new day set with that as far as delivering on service. And people want to know they can call somebody and get an answer. Um, that's part of the problem too. Trying to, if you got a pothole or a car been sitting on your street too long, they don't want politicians sitting on their hands saying what they could do. They want to get it removed, and you have to have those relevant politics, as I call it, where people can know and feel like the government is working for them each and every day.
Gotcha. So what I hear is transparency, execution, even if it's on the small things, because the small things do matter. Because I do think that sometimes a lot of people focus on the larger issues and the larger organizing efforts when sometimes we forget that just talking to your neighbor or being able to walk down the street, knock on a door, and deliver that message or let somebody know what an event is happening, going on, or whether it be a legislative session is just as powerful as being a part of these large super coalitions. Because I know that's something that a lot of people always ask me about, like, what's the solutions? And I like to start small at the micro level because I think a lot of people look to the bigger spaces a lot more instead of those people who we can touch in our everyday lives, which is that much more powerful in a lot of different ways. Um, so for you, what does a successful administration look like? I know you talked about how you would like for Janice to govern differently from the last administration in terms of fairness, in terms of what a lot of people would refer to as cronyism. And that's just the nature of giving handouts to people who are in favor or in alignment with your uh, political sphere, for lack of a better word. But what would you want to see in the next 4 years in term everything that you know with all that we going up against? How do we come out of this clean? What does that look like? And what is something that people can do? I know in your space down at the council building, as well as here in Ward 8 for everyday residents.
Well, I think that one thing, the mayor has to have a good working relationship with the council, with the ANCs, with the civic associations, because when people on the ground are credible, it makes the mayor look credible. For example, I had a lady at Congress Heights Senior Wellness Center. She was like, she said she called me grandson. Grandson, I've been calling about these cars on my street. So I said, let's go see the cars. We rode down the street after the meeting was over, to see the cars, and I ended up getting the cars removed right? That makes everybody look good. Myself,
Hmm.
her when she talked to her other neighbors, yeah, I got these cars removed. I got tired of looking at them. The mayor, because you got to have a executive branch that responds to the legislative branch and even the local level with the agencies. People have to feel that they are valued when it comes to getting services in the district. And I think that there has been some miscommunication along the way. And I think that the council member and the Democratic nominee Denise Lewis George has the ability to change that. But again, she has to have the right people around her. She has to have ears on the ground. She has to be able to reach the common folks and meet the boardroom and meet and have levels of high level conversation with the president because we're not a state. So it's going to take some unique skill sets to really get this train moving forward in the right direction.
Got you, got you. And you just mentioned the fact that we don't have statehood. So for those of you all who are watching and you're not in the District of Columbia, DC is not a state. So we do have to respond to and work with Congress and our federal I wouldn't call them allies at this point, but our neighbors. So with that being said, I just want to ask you, how do you feel about, personally, the response from what we would call allies in the DNC? I'm a registered Democrat, you're a registered Democrat. But the response that I've seen from members like yourself, other people who they would consider like the fringe left, the Firebirds of the squad, and everybody in this new wave, and this just overall apprehension, or in a lot of cases, just not wanting to concede, and almost adversarial stance that they're having to you all as a quote unquote political camp. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you feel about that? So, in terms of Democratic leadership, I'm a registered Democrat, you're a registered Democrat. The wave of Democratic socialists, however you want to frame it, fringe left, how do you feel about the response, the adversarial stance and position that is being taken by leadership as if we were Republicans or MAGA? How do you
Well,
feel about that? Like, how do you see that?
I see it as a new wave of energy. And whatever name you gave it, it gave people hope and the ability to make decisions. It's not just happening here in DC, but we've seen Mayor Mandami, you've seen it all over the country. He's taking a lot of credit for it, of course, because he's one of the first. But you see people want to be in the Democratic Party, but want something different. And it's causing a lot of clash. And I think that shakeup is good because when you get too comfortable in leadership and politics, you really don't, have the heart or the guts to do what you once did when you first came in. So I think it's going to wake some people up, unite some people, but strengthen the party in my opinion, because it was dying off, if you ask me. I think that, you're gonna see it in these midterms. You've seen it already. I think that, it's gonna be shown in next presidential election. You're gonna see a lot of new people getting more involved and feeling like that, they are connected to something that's a movement, because people are tired of the status quo.
Got you, got you. So I'm gonna pass it to Quan. I just brought Quan up. Quan, can you introduce yourself to everybody who is watching? Let them know who you are, what you do, and how you're connected to the District of Columbia.
So I'm Daquan, Gilded Quan, one half of the Gilded Sages. I'm also a school teacher at Tacoma Elementary. I'm also a political canvasser myself. I did a lot of work throughout, the campaign season. And I'm a lifelong Washingtonian, 37 years, Ward 8 resident, DC public school alum. So I've seen a lot and I know a lot. I've worked a lot of different places and spaces in terms of, just dealing with our youth and young people.
Got you. So we just left off the conversation about the election, the overall state of the Democratic Party in terms of the adversarial position. So I'm gonna throw you the question of how do you feel as a person who campaigned or assisted in campaigning for a person who is considered a Democratic Socialist of America? How do you feel about the adversarial stance that has been taken towards that specific spectrum of the Democratic Party?
To be honest with you, I believe that it's misguided. I don't understand why there's such a split on a lot of what the agenda of the democratic socialism is. I think that a lot of the moderates, when it comes to the Democratic Party, they're too closely aligned with the interests of businesses. And what I see from a democratic socialist framework is that the focus is on people. And what confuses me is that originally that was what the Democratic Party was about. So it's very telling to see that a party that started off for the people are now, heavily investing and attacking the very part of the Democratic Party that is for the people. So, it they have a lot to work on in terms of, figuring out what their vision is and figuring out what that value system is, because I think it's a value issue. They've lost what their values are as a political party.
Gotcha. And so Salim has just joined the call, the show. Please introduce yourself to the audience, good sir, and let everybody know who you are, how you engage, and what it is that you do in the District of Columbia. And I'm going to also pass the same question to you. Um, this last past mayoral election, we had Janice Lewis George win. What are your thoughts on the election? And also, what are your thoughts on the overall temperature in terms of the Democratic Party and how it has seemed to fracture itself as a result of these wins from Democratic Socialists?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Salim Rodolfo. I am Commissioner, Chair of ANCHC, and I am the Ward 8, one of the Ward 8 committeemen elect for the DC State Democratic Party. And I try to do my best to help push the community forward. Full disclosure, I had a long, about 20-minute conversation with Devon this morning, actually. We were talking about progressive versus non-progressive. And I think what we landed on is the idea of we get attached to labels and titles of things as opposed to the actual tangible things that we do on the ground. And so to answer your question, I think we need to have some conversations around civics. Socialism is not a political party. It's an economic system. And somehow we've confused the two. And I think that we've all practiced some form of socialism. My grandmother would send me next door to somebody's house to get some sugar growing up. And the neighbor next door was saying her grandchildren over to my grandmother's house to borrow some flour. And we would share the resources. And so sharing resources amongst each other, I think, is something that we've always practiced, especially in the African American community. And so looking at the state of this past election, I think that we let the mainstream media dictate to us what who our leaders should be, what they should look like, and how things should operate. And that's just not the case. The Democratic Party isn't the few people elected to these positions. The Democratic Party are the people who are actually the voters out here making stuff happen. And so whatever they decide is the direction that the party is going. And so I just want to throw that out there because we're thinking that the Democratic Party, according to mainstream media, are either the people who hold an elected position or people who are on the leadership parties of either at the ward level or the state committee. And that's just not the case. And I'll wrap it up by saying, whether we agree with it or not, Initiative 83 won with over 70% of the city voting for it. And the DC State Democratic Party is less than 100 leaders. But with over 300,000 Democrats, with over 200,000 Democrats in the city, 70% of them voted for something. So that tells me that if the DC State Democratic Party leadership wasn't on board with that, then they were out of touch with the party. And so the party is the people, not necessarily the positions. I'll turn it
Well,
back
but
over to you.
Gotcha.
I got a question as relates to that because a lot of people just voted linear down the line and didn't really do the ranked choice as was proposed. I don't know if that narrative is true. It was very confusing. And I think that people just had a candidate and they picked that candidate in a large scale, contrary to what the ranked choice voting was supposed to do. What's your
Well,
thoughts on that?
I apologize, Trey. I was speaking about 2 years ago when folks voted for Initiative 83, not this past
Oh, gotcha.
election cycle.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and I do concur with you. I think to answer your question, this election cycle, people opted for participating in it in a very I don't want to say archaic, but they went with what they already knew and understood because the process wasn't really explained to people in a very good way. Because even myself as a super voter, it was a lot and the ballot was longer and the process was longer as a result. So I could definitely see how people chose that route. But you mentioned something in this election, the youth came up a lot. There were times where people tried to co-opt certain moments for campaign reasons around the youth with all of the different gatherings that we've been seeing in and all of the different kerfuffles that have come up as a result of the tension between the National Guard, the youth, and there's been conversations about who hasn't provided what resources are available. And so one of the questions that I wanted to pose, because and it's more kind of solution oriented, even though it's still around the election, we see this coming down the pike with AI, with all of these different new technologies, with higher education kind of taking a back seat to the trades as a result of how the economy is reshaping itself. For the council member, how do you think young people are being prepared for DC's future economy, or if they are, and if they aren't, what do you think should be some of the focus points that not only your colleagues, but also here people down at the community level, like the organizers, the activists, that we should focus on to also try to aid yourself and people who are in allyship to helping the youth make this transition into what is going to be a new world? Because we could talk all day about who's to blame for what. And there's enough to go around for sure. And we could do that on another show. But I want to ask you, do you think they're being prepared? And if not, what do you think we should be focused on as a group?
Yeah, so the short answer is no. I interact with youth on a regular basis. I do a lot of volunteer programming, mentorship in our middle schools and high schools, and there's a disconnect from what we're teaching them versus where they're going. And I think that our CTE program need to be strengthened. That's our career technical education programs in our school. It's outdated, and we have to, use the technology, AI, and those careers in which people are going in. There's a few industries that are booming in DC, and especially the tech industry, hospitality industry, hotel and restaurant management industry, security and police industries that we haven't really created what used to be called the pathway to the middle class to ensure they have careers here. And so as a result, we're creating a permanent underclass. I think there's a disconnect in what we in listening to young people. When I go to youth forums, the constant theme is you all are not hearing me, right? And Councilmember Dr. Parker had a hearing about 3 weeks ago with youth, and they were saying just that over and over again. And so he, in listening to him, created a bill to incentivize them to get involved in programs. I think he was paying them a stipend of like $50 or something. When it came to the council, when the chairman first was taking a vote, the bill was about to fail for a couple of 100,000, and I stopped it. I'm like, hold on, we talking about giving you $50 when we just gave a football team we underwrit $1.2 billion for a football team, $520 million for a basketball team, and we say we care about the next generation, and they want a $50 stipend, and we're saying no, right? And so we have a $22 billion budget, and it's not just about not having the money, is about what we're prioritizing. If you look at officer out of school time, we could be doing more. We can be doing more with integrating some of the technology space, some of the career space inside of our schools, especially schools east of Anacostia River. And I think that there are those who want to go to college, that's absolutely. for those who don't, because DC has some of the highest level of college graduates, the top 3 in the country as relates to, you know, per capita. And so it's a competitive market for those who are coming up in the city. You gotta have some skill, something to offer, something to compete with, the earned income that's equitable. And I think we have not done a good job of that. And so, and on another note, you asking about what we need to do as a city. We need to make sure that people want to, you know, shop and grow our city. It's hard when you get tickets everywhere, you know. And I think that's something that I always add to the conversation, because I think that council member, mayor to be, you know, when she get confirmed in January, but she's going to win, need to address it, and she said she would. I like her, you know, and I think all this goes back to making DC more livable for the everyday working class people, and we got to tap into entrepreneurship. We're not doing enough to undergird entrepreneurship. So I put money in the budget for what was called the Ward 8 SIF Community Investment Fund, the Dream Grants, things like that, to empower people to be innovative, to get involved, to feel like their ideas matter. Not everybody want to work a 9-to-5 job. And so this creative economy we're seeing, we got to encourage and create and foster that with our young people and our young adults.
Got you. And I'm gonna throw it to you, Quan, because in this conversation about education, I want you to tell us what you see, because you've worked in, and you correct me if I'm wrong, what, four schools east of the river? The disconnect in terms of what we're seeing from the outside, because a lot of people are talking about the education, a lot of people are, you know, talking about what's being taught and different things of that nature. But from your perspective as a person who has been in the field with these youth teaching, what's the gaps that need to be filled for teachers? Because I feel like teachers on the front, simple answer, need way more support, right? We all know that. But where are the gaps if we were trying to organize people to be able to go to a council member, go down to City Hall to advocate for you all as teachers?
So, in my opinion, my 15 years of just being in
Hmm.
education in every sense, a classroom aide, a substitute teacher, and an ET 15, I believe that the generation of youth that we have now are the result of us emphasizing testing. I believe that we have overemphasized testing to a point where it is impossible for a lot of teachers to be able to deliver the things that youth need, because so much of our livelihood is basically whether or not these kids are able to pass these standardized tests. And it's not necessarily on how much these children are becoming whole individuals that are able to live and better a community. We don't, we're not able to give a whole child approach, because so much of what happens in the classroom is dependent upon whether or not these children are able to pass these standardized tests. And I think that any good leadership would look into how evaluations are being given and look into the overemphasis on testing, because anyone who's been in the classroom, you know, we're all similar age. We went into a school that was able to teach you how to cook, that was able to teach you how to work on a car, that was able to teach you how to drive. Our children have none of those services that are being given to them in these curriculums, because the curriculums are heavily focused on, can this student pass this standardized test from March to May or April or however long. So there's an overemphasis on what kids can do with reading, math, science, and social studies. And our children deserve so much more from their education than just reading, math, science, and social studies. There's more to what our kids need to be prepared for than just those 4 subjects. But you go to any school in DC, and a teacher will tell you those are the only things I'm able to focus on, because that is what my job is dependent upon.
And so when you say evaluations, are you talking about evaluations for the teachers or evaluations for the students?
We both have evaluations. So our
Okay.
evaluations is based upon test scores, and their evaluations are based upon those same things as well. And what I'm saying is that has been one of the most detrimental things to our youth, because when you're in an environment where this is the metric, I can't deviate and teach a kid anything outside of what that test is going to prepare them for. I got to make sure that I hit that metric at all costs. And I could tell you right now, there's certain things within the curriculum I want to dive head first into, but you'll get told quickly that, hey, you need to make sure that you're redirecting these things back to what we're going to be doing in March, April, which is the standardized testing. And I believe that when you have 10, 15 years plus of us having to do that as educators, there's no wonder why our youth come out the way that they come out, because they're not getting a multitude of experiences out of having an education. When we were in education, we had the ability to do a lot of different things within the school building outside of reading, writing, outside of reading, math, social studies, and science. That's all kids have to look forward to in schools now.
Gotcha. So for you, Celine, we talked earlier about the smaller things. And before y'all came on, I had mentioned to Trayon that a lot of people always ask and talk about solutions. And I often point them to the very micro solutions because I think they build up small over time. So this conversation about youth in terms of organizing, in terms of your positionality from being a committee man, ANC commissioner, and just a person who's highly engaged in the community, what are those things that you feel like can be done to assist this stakeholder group over here with Daquan as teachers, but also feeding it back to either like myself, in addition to helping organize that allows and helps the council member? Because if I'm hearing Daquan correctly, there needs to be some realignment around not just the standardized testing piece, but just some policies and prioritizations that go in hand with creating overall better people versus robots, for lack of a better word.
No,
So
I
my
got you.
question to you is, yeah, like what does that
Well,
look like?
I'm gonna be honest. I think we have some great people doing some great things in the community already. We have some good organizations. For one, we have Never Black Down in our community who's doing some good work. I think where the gap is at is that we don't have consistency in being able to help those organizations build capacity, and that's the challenge. We have right in the heart of Congress Heights, the UDC Workforce Development Campus. And at that campus, there's the Apple Tech program, just as an example. There is a project management course as another example. And we have CC Prep in Acosta. I can start naming all of the institutions that we have. We have Academy of Hope. Um, but people oftentimes aren't connected to those. So that's one of the issues that we have. We have tons of organizations that do provide mental health resources. We got sister like Chanel, she does bold yoga, trying to help people heal or keep them on the right track. And we got to be able to help them get the resources they need to build capacity and expand. And I don't want to ever look at our community and just look at it as being in total disarray, because we do have some good folks that are out there that are doing some things. It's our job, me as a commissioner, Councilmember White, as the council member, to make sure, like he said, put stuff in the budget. And then we got to make sure that we're helping to spread that information. And I think that's where we really, fall short at my level, maybe at your level too. We got to be able to tell folks, hey, this is what's happening. Let's convene people to try to share information and not, sometimes we hoard their information, or we share it within our circles, and not that we're trying to be gatekeepers. but sometimes we don't go outside of our circle and to network. And I think part of that reason is we just get so comfortable being in our own spaces sometimes. And so as a leader, you're not elected to just govern the people who are your friends. You got to go out there and make new relationships. And I know I've been guilty of that. I got elected as a commissioner in 2018. And in 2019, I got invited to a log cabin event. I had no idea who the log cabin was. And I found out it was a gay Republican organization. And I called a friend of mine. I was like, why are some gay Republicans calling me? And, she had to remind me, you aren't just there to just, represent some Black people that, may be heterosexual. You are here to try to represent your constituents. You're going to have a diverse amount of lifestyles. And so we got to be able to try to help support people and, broaden our coalition. Going back to the other reason why Janice was able to get elected, she had a broader coalition. And so to me, that's one of the things that we got to do better at. And that would be my solution, is to make sure that we're consistently, sharing information and trying to connect people with the resources that they need, whether it be to help them become a better human being or to help them to develop professional.
So, offer some pushback on a couple of those, just so that we can, I feel like, find new alignment. Because I think, yes, there are people who are doing good work. Yes, we have organizations that have been doing good work. But I think doing good work does not and has not automatically translated into better funding, more access, and more leverage. And I would also argue that even though we do have people doing things in the community, that it is in disarray to the extent that it is not streamlined for one direction. I feel like we as a community, we have all of these different things that operate in silos, to your point, which I do agree with. But I think that siloing is the disarray that doesn't allow us to compound. Now, for me, I think from a policy standpoint and just an appropriation standpoint, I think that one of the things that just has to happen is that, look, y'all can take the micro grants across the river, and we want the 500, we want the 5 million, 10 million, $20 million contracts. And since y'all think micro grants is such a great idea, you take the micro grants, because I think micro grants, even though they served a good intent, they don't offer the capacity for organization to build outside of being politically captured, which is what I am trying to move away from. Because if, as an organization, I can like your work, but if I only give you a couple $100,000 or a couple $1,000, it doesn't allow you to move off of me, and then I become dependent on you, and that means that I have to serve you politically. I think as a group, we have to move away from that. And even though I do think that one of the things that we do need to do is build coalitions, but I think we have to reframe a lot of the conversations around reciprocity, because I think I remember when Trayon first started, there was a huge conversation around the contracts and the contractors who were getting the work, and he got a lot of pushback around advocating specifically for Black African American people to get those contracts. But I think the point that was missed is that, yes, it is important to build coalitions, but we have to serve and protect ourselves first, because right now, other communities are financially better off than we are, and we are a legacy group when it comes to the foundation that we have within this country. So when we talk about these things, I think that it's fair enough, even for, again, when we talk about Janice, it's like, yes, you do have the coalitions. We have the coalitions. We are all in the Democratic Party, but we also have to get really good at, when having these coalitions, asking people for, what are you going to do for us as well? Because we lend you all our social capital. We lend you all our political capital. We come out for your marches. We come out for your organizations. We help catapult you into these spaces where people can then say that their communities are well off. But then we still, as a community, here, Ward 8, Ward 7, east of the river, Black and brown, Native Washingtonians, however you want to classify it, have not been able to compound and find what I feel like is real power and autonomy in being able to say, look, we gonna do this, how we gonna do this, and we not really focused on somebody using their political glove of might to punch down. And that's I think for
Well,
me,
Devon,
that's
can I
the
jump in there
difference.
real quick?
Yeah,
Let me
sure.
say this, because Quan said it earlier. I think part of where I would disconnect is also is we don't work on the whole person. And so when we work on the whole person, we're able to help get people to understand you have to overcome whatever differences you have with people. And part of the reason historically for us, we haven't been able to get together is because we've had differences we haven't been able to work out. As we all know somebody that's fell out with a family member over $20 they borrowed 30 years ago, right? Well, we saw with Denmark Vesey playing one of the largest slave rebellions ever, but somebody went and snitched. And so what I think to your point is part of us being able to coalesce in spite of all of the challenges that we have to stick to the code. And we have to make sure that we are putting our community first and stick to that code that no matter what, we're going to put our community first. And when we're able to do that and build up our infrastructure stronger outside of the system, we have more leverage when we approach the system to make things happen. If we had an organized body of votes and an organized body of funds, when Councilmember Tron White introduces some legislation or says something at the council, we got enough muscle to make those other folks say, look, y'all need to get him these 6 votes. Or there'll be consequences exacted upon them if they don't.
Can I add to something real quick? Thank you, Celine, for that. I think that's very thoughtful, and it has to be some organization. I want to go back to your point of saying about the community-based organizations, and I think that there is a pot of money that people try to grab from, but it's not what it used to be. I think that historically we've done more for the community with less. Right? I remember when the government was only $9 billion, and we had CCYVP, we had the DC Trust Fund, right? And I think that too many organizations, to your point, Celine, solely depend upon government and have to diversify with public-private partnerships, right? When I talk to organizations, I ask who on your board. It's just their friends and family. We have to get bankers on our board. We have to get lawyers on our board. We got to get fundraisers on our board. We got to diversify our board so we can be more credible and more innovative in how to connect the pieces, especially when it comes to these larger foundations that are in DC and some of these large corporations who are in DC. Because when we just focus on government and a relationship to any political figure, guess what? The political people change. I mean, the priority might change. So if you're doing a work in the community and you already got 25 kids you're serving, the priority of a council member or mayor change, then you stuck with these kids with no funding because we didn't think bigger picture and more connections and a more cohesive approach. And so I've been trying to broaden that conversation. In fact, I want to open up a nonprofit incubator hub here in Ward 8, like we used to have at the United Black Fund, to ensure that they have what they need. Because when they are good, then those who they are in the trenches on the ground are good. And I think that for a long time they have not been as good as we could make it.
I like that. I like that because those are one of those conversations that I don't think a lot of people have access to when it comes to how your board is set up, because you kind of get slightly behind that curtain to see what makes an organization really work. So if you are watching us, it's just one of those things that people can take and apply, that if you are in business or you do have a small business, diversifying is definitely a great tool to be able to help you get that access and some of that and build some of that capacity. And so, like I said, for the people who are listening and watching, those are some of the smaller solutions that are not as sexy. Because I know a lot of people like to do the glamorous work, the always in the front work, but you as well as I know that a lot of stuff get made in the mud that ain't really pretty. But what I wanted to ask you, because I know you said that you gotta go, so I don't want to keep you overtime. Um, what should residents, as we are on this conversation, stop waiting for government to solve alone? And how can they position themselves to be better allies to not just the community, but also those people like yourself or the mayor, or some of these other political entities that we see?
Well, one thing I believe that no one is coming to save us but us. And sometimes you got to become your own savior in your own life. And first time, sometimes you got to save yourself. And a lot of it comes from educating yourself, believing in yourself, challenging yourself, pushing yourself. Because as you become the best version of yourself, it affects those in your family and those who see you and feel you and love on you every day. And so we have to personally become whole and forgive each other and work through some of the trauma we've experienced even growing up in this community. Secondly, I think that we have not done enough of education on how the government works, right? Because the power is in the people. When you when I see how people interact with government, I'm like, no, we work for you. Even Mr. Council member, it's almost like a hero syndrome. You're like, oh, that's he. I'm like, no, have you done this, and this? What about this? A young lady pulled up on me today. She was like, she's trying to start a cleaning company or whatever, some type of cleaning company. I was like, did you do this, and this? She's not. I need you to help me do that. So I'm like, people have visions, but they don't want to put the groundwork in. You know what I'm saying? As a result, they allow other people to be accountable for their dreams. And so sometimes it's about having the right information and access to information and capital to get those things off the ground. I think that once you do that, it makes the community more whole because the right hand don't do what the left hand do, the heart don't do what the head do. But we all have unique gifts and talents that can add value to the community. We got to tap in, and that comes with us believing in ourselves and supporting each other. With the old crab in a barrel syndrome, we have a lot of that in our community. And unfortunately, to Celine's point, even if you have a op or somebody who's not supporting, you got to figure out not what we disagree about, but let's take time to figure out what we can agree about to get to a common community goal to better help each other because we're stronger together.
Yep. And I like that. And what I will say is, in that, because I do believe in civic engagement, this is why I have now come to the internet to try to have political conversations. I know a lot of people ask me all of the time to kind of loosen up on a jargon. But one of the things that I've always told, like my sister and people who love me, even Quan, to tell you, I use jargon and I expect people to look it up because I want people to know that people who are adversarial to us are going to use jargon to exclude us. So when you hear, you be like, oh yeah, I heard Lesesne say that. I know what that is now. Stop trying to play with me because like you said, part of it is working a muscle. Part of it is becoming stronger, and being strong makes you that much stronger in the sense that you, like you said, it's a challenge to a certain extent because without that friction, we even in our best of intentions tend to get atrophied if we don't necessarily have that tug and pull. So I commit myself to that, and I plan on doing that. And like I'm having and wanted to have, and I appreciate you for having this conversation because I really want to get and start getting heavier in the policy to kind of help those who are in these spaces, in these seats, to get what we need, to get what we want. Because I know that that's a lot of work that also needs to be done. But Quan, the same question to you, good sir. What,
Um,
because I know you conservative in this way. We've had these conversations. So what are the things that need to be done? And more importantly, because I know you already feel a specific way about it, can you really focus on how it looks? Yeah, I appreciate you, good sir. Thank you. And we'll do, and I'll make sure that anytime something important come up, that we send it out. If you need to come up, and I'll be in touch, like I said, to work on any policy, civic
Yes, I'm
engagement
open to
thing
that,
that you
man.
want
I
to
don't
come
have all
to.
the solutions. The more minds, more people have working on it, the better we are, man. I'm open to that. Trust me. I ain't just saying it because I'm on here. Definitely open to that. All right, saying, all right, Kwame, y'all be blessed, man.
all right,
Thank you.
man. Thank you
You
for
be safe and
supporting.
enjoy. Same question to you, Quan.
So for me, one of the things that I'm doing currently is I want people to get in the mind frame that a lot of what's happening politically, we as a people are not powerless to it. For example, Trayon brought up the commanders coming back to the city. That they actually just had a meeting about this month being the month that they're going to be holding open houses for residents to, give their input. And what I'm telling people is that these are the opportunities that we as a community, we need to capitalize on more of and get the information about, because these are where the decisions are made. And this is where our voices are most important. And this has nothing to do with what a government official can do for us. This has everything to do with what we as people can go out and use our voice to impact. So just taking these opportunities, going on to the ANC meetings, learned about what's going on in our communities. I know for a fact I went to the last one was a webinar, and I learned about the Martins View situation where they're going to be doing some redevelopment there. Becoming more politically active by way of participating in the local politics is what I feel as though needs to be more of a lift on us. And it's not something that we're unfamiliar with. Seeing we know people that follow some of the most minuscule things, Love Island, all of these types of things, we can take that same energy and focus it on the political things that are really impacting us on our day to day. This is something that's going to impact Ward 7 on the day-to-day basis. And they need people to come out and represent real residents that have real concerns. And we need to make sure that we're there. And that is an opportunity that we need to, as DC residents, take advantage of.
I agree 100%. As I always say up here, time is finite, energy is finite, and all of those should be treated as precious resources. So I'm in full agreement. For those who are watching, if you are not in DC, we have what we call ANCs, which stands for Advisory Neighborhood Commissioners. Advisory Neighborhood Commissioners are going to be, I don't want to say the lowest level, but they are the bottom level of the legislative body towards the DC Council. And they're responsible for a lot of community activity, the community benefits agreements, and just overall management of the projects that come within your community. So if you are here in DC, your ANC, specifically go to your SMD, which is your single member district. You can go to it at anc.dc.gov and look up your specific ward. So knowing all of those things are very important, but then also understanding that they have a duty and a responsibility to create what we call resolutions. Those resolutions then get forwarded and compiled to the council member and act as a tool to advise him on what to prioritize when they go into these legislative sessions. And so knowing all of those things are very important, because I know a lot of people talk about them not being political or not being quote unquote me, because a lot of people think that I am just political. Like, I'm a human person. I have my hobbies. I like the game. I like anime. I like shoes, fashion, and all of these different things. But I also know that we do have to prioritize and focus on the politics at hand, especially at the local level, because the people, I'll say in full transparency, the people who are doing it are not bad people, but those people are coming to a point where either they're aging out, they're old, and then you have the very few people who do it who are burnt out. And so a lot of the times, a lot of stuff doesn't get done, not because people don't care or not because people have malintent. It's just there aren't enough hands because we're dealing with such complex issues. And I know they talked about Janice earlier, and her focusing and having certain priorities. And again, I don't wish this current political space and these seats on any particular person, because a lot of the issues are bigger than the seats themselves. So I do wish them the best, and I want to just make myself available so that we can make it through. Because again, people, whoever you align with, whatever you're aligned with, understand that a lot of these people's failure is our failure in the sense that there is no glory in saying, aha, when these people lose, because ultimately we lose at the same time. So I just need people to understand that and really, really take that into consideration as we move through this next decade in the United States of America. But I want to thank everybody for having a conversation, coming, viewing. I appreciate you, Quan. If you want to say anything as co-founder, before we jump off, please give the people your words. And next time, for everybody who's watching, I need y'all to clown Quan because my man cannot get this horizontal screen to go, and I'm sick of it because the man act like he's 50 years old, man.
Listen,
But nah, go
man.
ahead.
All I'm gonna say is, man, definitely tune in to what we're doing. Hood to the Hill, Gilded Sages. We're doing a lot in terms of informing the people. I'm gonna just say, politics is a verb. It has to be done. We have to do more in terms of activity, in terms of getting out, engaging, in terms of just learning about what's going on in your surroundings. We're in a time now where everyone is competing for your attention, and in that competition, what's being lost is everything that's happening on the political side. We're having conversations about certain things, and every time I turn on BBC News or CNN, there's a Supreme Court decision that nobody tweets about, nobody Instagrams about, nobody TikToks about. And it's like all of these things are going under the radar because we're entertaining things that do not affect our everyday life. And what I'm telling you and everybody that's listening is that the politics is first, second, and third in your life. And what's
Yeah,
happening?
and
Oh, go ahead.
let's not say because we're going to have the binary warriors. We got to make it clear that, of course, it's not nobody. It's larger majority. Because
Oh,
you're
yeah,
gonna have
yeah, yeah.
people say that's the absolute. I know. It's one of my running jokes because you gotta. It's funny doing this online. You gotta make. It's a weird disclaimer to have to make because
Yeah.
we're. But yes, it is super hyper important to do. Um, did I forget anything? So before we head out, I don't think I did forget anything. Any last words?
Um, just engage your local politics. Um, give it the same attention that you would give doom scrolling, and we would be so far ahead in terms of what we could do as a community.
With that being said, thank you, beautiful people. I appreciate y'all for joining us, and we will be back with another one. I will be dropping a video on why businesses are really going to fail because I need people to understand this is, again, like I said, bigger than any politician. So stay on the lookout for that. If you are watching, share the video, subscribe, like it. All of those things count and are very helpful to my humble abode. So enjoy the rest of y'all evening. Enjoy y'all 4th of July and be safe.